Hey, what's up, guys? Node Investor here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another fun edition of Live with Node Investor. We're going to look at Bitcoin. We're going to talk some charts. We are going to talk market sentiment, popularity, mainstream Bitcoin, and we are live. How is everyone doing on this wonderful Saturday? Maybe Sunday your time, my Saturday. I'm coming to you live from sunny, warm in November, Arizona. I was outside just a little while ago and I was sweating. It was so hot running out there. So, yeah, good times. And going to talk Bitcoin. I got a few things on my mind. We'll look at some charts, see what you guys want to do, and we'll go from there. I promise you guys, this will not be another 5-hour live stream. Famous last words. No, it's not. It really isn't. Not this time. It's Huggy in Seattle. You know, I might actually be in Seattle here soon. So let's see what we got going on here. Got a lot of people starting to come on in. I tried to plan it out in advance a little bit today, give you guys a little bit more of a heads up instead of my normal impromptu, I'm going to go live because the market's going crazy. Here we are, Bitcoin knocking on the door of 11,000. We kind of been back and forth all last couple days or so, last day and a half. We had a nice bounce off the low, so I want to talk about that, talk about where we might be headed right now, some good I'm seeing, some bad I'm seeing, and we'll go from there. So let's take a look at Bitcoin. Quick recap of where we've come from the last couple of days. Man, oh man. So see, this right here is nice right here. Let me squeeze out this bad part. This is beautiful Bitcoin action. Just marching along. Look how tight it got right there. This was over the last late Thanksgiving holiday time, my time, and then bam, we broke out. How many green bars in a row could you go? Boom, 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 and we were hitting 11,000. We had that intraday high, and then all the chaos of volatility hit, and things got crazy. Happens from time to time around here. Things get crazy, but here we are, marching back. Maybe, just maybe, a little bit back to more normalized volatility. And, you know, Bitcoin is volatile by nature, but sometimes it gets really volatile. Sometimes it gets crazy. And if you've been around for a while, you know, it's just part of the normal action. So here we are. Let me zoom in. So we had this crazy couple of days. If you watched my last video, I was talking about potential double bottom. I was cautiously optimistic. You're looking at the 4-hour. We did that, and so far that played out. It also broke the downtrend that it was in, and once we did that, it was very quick from the 9,000, mid 9,000 level back up to close to 11,000. So that was nice to see. That's the good. Another thing I was talking about, let me hop over to this one here, was the broader daily chart. We pulled back and we hit a key Fibonacci level. That was another reason I was optimistic that the low was in for now. So if you look at that, basically from the run we had going back to that crazy night where we went down to $5,400 and back up, from the peak up to, what was that, 11.5, let's call it. We had a pretty good shakeout, and it might be a little hard to see on this, but this right here, this section, this is the 382 level on the key Fibonacci retracement level. So that's the first level. The next level would have been 618, would have put us at around 78, 7,700 bucks. So it hit the first level, and that first level just happened to correlate with the 10-day or the 10 EMA on the daily chart. So the 10-period moving average. And so that's good. And so just, it bouncing around here kind of led me to believe maybe that was it. And sure enough, yesterday we had a pretty good move to the upside and looking good so far. Now that's the good. Now let's talk the bad. So there's a couple of things to look at here. So still looking at the daily chart, zooming out, right? This one bar here was a very big volume reversal candle, right? So if you look at this day here that I'm talking about, and you look at the volume, I mean, just massive volume, and that was sell volume. There's no doubt about that. That was sell volume. And the last couple of days, as we've marched higher, volume has been declining on that rise here. So it's a little bit of a red flag, right? It's not a sell signal in and of itself, but you got to pay attention to that. And see, the other thing is we haven't cleared the old highs around 11.5. We're coming right up to 11,000, right? So just, the best case scenario for me right now would be if Bitcoin just kind of sat tight here for a little bit, maybe a day or two, and just built a little bit of buy pressure right underneath that 11,000. And then from there, let the moving average catch up. That would be best case scenario. And then we could go off to higher highs at that point. So that's the bad, I guess, the cautionary. If you zoom in a little bit and you look at the 4-hour chart, another thing a few people have been talking about, and I was talking about this yesterday, but the longer it stays this way, the less likely I'm thinking it'll happen. But there was a potential for a double top, right? So we had the big rise to 11.5, the big pullback down here, and if we had another rise, which would have been a lower rise yesterday, had it just kind of broken down, and it's still a possibility, but the longer it hangs up here, the less likely it's to happen. But if we would have had another pullback, that maybe would have put a big double top in place, and that would not be good. So if we were to just break down from this point, a double top here, this would be the neckline, the lows of the last couple days, right around 9,000 basically. If this double top breaks, I don't believe this 83, 8,400 level would hold. We would most likely see a measured move of the double top. And if we did that, that would take us down to, let's see where that takes us down. I think it's about 7,800 or so. No, I think that'd be too much here. I'm guessing we'd be right around that 74, 7,500. And that would actually correlate with that next level of Fibonacci retracement. So that would be the bad if this double top played out and we saw that breakout right here and start pulling in. So I'm not expecting that just because this is starting to hang tight up here. And this is actually a good scenario if it continues to just sit right around here. And it's not quite a giant cup and handle. It's a little messy, but that's, it's got this big pullback, the rise, the pause right below the old highs. It's very typical of bullish action where it bounces back, and anybody who bought over 11,000 is now glad that it's back to close to even, and they're kind of taking profits here and holding out. So that's the second top there, right? So this is starting to hang out here a little bit longer. That's good. It's starting to close above the prior highs. That's good. We haven't broken that intraday high yet, but it's looking pretty good. The moving average is continuing to rise here. RSI is a bearish divergence, right? So you can see the lower low here, right? So we had this right here. That was the last peak, and then this most recent top is right here. But a big shakeout like what we saw the last couple days will reset the RSI, and it's actually quite healthy to kind of pull it back in. But if we have another new high, let's say it goes to 12,000, and this RSI just barely bubbles up to 74, 75, and it starts to pull in again, then that'll be a red flag, right? So just kind of looking at different scenarios. It all depends if you're trading, if you're holding long term, if you're looking to make buys for the long term versus doing some of the swing trading and some of that. And so you look at the scenarios both ways depending on what your strategy is. Now, I do a little bit of both, as you guys know. I have a long-term portfolio, and I will hold, and I generally don't look at some of these, 1-hour charts and the 30-minute charts when I'm making decisions there. I'm looking at the daily charts, and I'm seeing what's the broader trend, right? And that's kind of the slower adjustments there. But when it comes to trading and doing a lot of that, which I really enjoy doing, so I certainly do a part of that, then I will take a more granular look because, on a long-term portfolio, this doesn't really matter. But when you're trading, this is huge. I mean, you can avoid a 15% decline and capture part of that or buy on the dip, and you can, you can technically make an extra 10, 15, 20% Bitcoin than you had prior to the shakeout. If you're just holding long term, you just write it out, no big deal. But if you're trading it, you might come out ahead. So that's why I do a little bit of both there. So far, so good. I know some of you guys, and rightly so, were worried. And when I made my last video about, I think that might be it, that was the double bottom, there was a lot of, nah, we're going to 8,000, we're going to 7,000 tomorrow. And I said, I hope not. But if we do, I'll see you guys down there. We'll buy some more. But right now, it's looking good. Now, the thing is, there's just a lot of buying pressure. You've got the public, just 10K Bitcoin is bringing a lot of attention. There's a lot of news now. There's a lot of gurus coming out. So there's people who had no clue about blockchain and Bitcoin just a few months ago that are now pumping out courses. I won't mention any names, but some of these self-help gurus are suddenly the experts, and they want to charge you $500 to show you how to buy and invest in Bitcoin. So it's a sign of the times, my friends. 2018 will be the year of the mainstream Bitcoin mania. This year was us, the early adopters, the people that were laughed at. And notice how it's changed. You look at the sentiment now. You go to the news, right? Just 6 months ago, every time the news was talking about Bitcoin, it was about some hacker and some ransomware and some dark web and the nefarious activities funded by Bitcoin. And now it's about how all the smart people are investing in Bitcoin and how the startups in Silicon Valley and the governments and on and funds and all the smart hedge funds are buying Bitcoin now, and CNBC no longer laughs. Now they're all on board. It's changed. It certainly has. And for the better, right? This is what we wanted. We wanted the adoption. We wanted Bitcoin to go mainstream. And I'm glad, because, the governments that were maybe feeling like, oh, maybe we should ban Bitcoin or being threatened by it, now they look foolish if they're doing this. Like, you really? Bitcoin, the revolution, cryptocurrencies, you're going to ban blockchain? Like, you go in the wrong direction. So it's a good thing. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's my rant. What else do I want to talk about? Futures, Bitcoin futures, CME, that starts trading. Oh, what's the date? The 14th, I believe, the 11th, one of those two dates. So it's approved, it's official. And so here's the thing. If you're not familiar with futures and options, the way these things work is they settle in cash, but it will be bullish because a lot of funds, institutionals that would not invest in cryptos or Bitcoin now will, because they can hedge and they can use options or futures to take on some risk mitigation there. So for example, let's say you buy Bitcoin and you're actually holding Bitcoin at 11K. You could buy a short option or short contract. So if you're holding Bitcoin and it starts to fall, you're going to lose 1% here. But if you're short, then that position is going to gain and it'll offset some of this. So it's very normal activity for hedge funds to do that, and they routinely do it. So it just gives them another vehicle to do that. And it'll let them just ride it out without actually dumping physical Bitcoin. So it might help from that perspective, but is it going to be, is it going to make Bitcoin more stable like they're claiming? Heck no. All it's going to do is provide another vehicle for which to profit from the volatility. It's not going to make it more stable just because you have a futures contract. Come on. There'd be no point in making a futures contract if it made it more stable, right? Traders would be mad. We want the volatility. Well, maybe not. Some sleep from time to time would be good. Okay, so that's it. That's my rant on futures and options. Am I going to trade Bitcoin futures? Probably not right away. I'm having enough fun just trading Bitcoins. It's cool. And altcoins and all this other fun stuff. So let's take a look at the chart. So we talked Bitcoin. Is it a double top? Not yet. The longer it sits here, it's going to really invalidate that. Double tops tend to be really sharp two peaks. So on the 4-hour chart, that's not really in play anymore. Yesterday, it was an option. Had it like really broken down right here, that would have not been good. The level that I was watching was this 10.4 level that's holding right now. What's happening now is we're starting to see a series of higher lows. That's good. The resistance is clearly right around that 11.1 area, and that's fine. Let it build up. I want it to build some pressure here right below the old highs. If I had it my way, it'd continue to just kind of chop around here for another day or so. Let the daily chart kind of catch up here a little bit and sit tight for a little and let things go from there. So that would be best case scenario. Certainly not a double top on the daily chart either. So that's 4 hour. We'll see where that goes. If it decides to pull back, the levels to watch, if you're playing it tight, if you're trading this thing, the level to watch now is raised a little bit. So it's 10.6. That's the level that I'm watching here. And that's also the 10 EMA on the 4 hour chart. Below that, if this really starts to break down, 10.5 was a big wall that it broke through, 10.4, 10.5, maybe that. And then max 9,900, but it needs to hold the 10K level now. Now that it's recaptured it and it had this battle around the 10K a couple days ago, we're above it. It's got to hold 10K. So that's the level to be watching. If it doesn't, we could see some more downside and probably of magnitude, like another 15-20% at least. So those are my thoughts. If we continue to sit tight here, break over that 11.2 area, and we're going to be at new highs pretty quick. This 11.4, 11.5 was a very brief. Let's go to the charts here. That was very quick intranight. So you can see here the real resistance is this right here. That 11.2 area. That's the real resistance to be watching. These little spikes were just so quick and brief. They're almost insignificant. There was really not a lot of volume up there. So once we start to break out above that, we can start to close above that. It's off to the races, and we'll have a 12K party. It'd be fun. 10K party, 12K party. Keep them coming. So that's Bitcoin. Let's look at some of the other ones. The big three. We'll talk Ethereum. Now, Ethereum really has been lagging the last couple of days. And, you know, after I had that big run up a couple weeks ago, let me clear my lines here for you guys. It's starting to pause now, and it needed it. It got very extended in the short run. So I had this big run up that took it basically to 475 in range, and just started to pause there. And then we had the crazy Bitcoin day there, went over 11 back down, and it's just been sitting tight here. Now, if you look at Ethereum versus BTC, it's certainly in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days or so has been lagging significantly, right? So it's underperformed Bitcoin. Bitcoin has continued to reach new highs. This one has underperformed by 20 to 30%. So has been sitting tight from a USD side while Bitcoin's been running. Litecoin has been the stronger one. So if we go back to LTC here, and that's actually been my preference over the last couple of days here is Litecoin. And it's starting to do pretty good. You can see the last 3 days has been actually rising faster than Bitcoin as Bitcoin has found a low there. And if we go to the daily charts, remember what I mentioned last time? I said we're right next to the old highs. It'd be nice if it just sat tight here for a little bit. It did for like 2 or 3 days, but then it had this crazy shakeout. I think that was enough to reset some of the RSI. We're back down to 65 on the daily, and then here we go. Big volume pop to the upside yesterday. Briefly went over $100 a couple times now. Not over completely, but we're basically there. $100 Litecoin. And I'm thinking we're going to see more upside on Litecoin. So I'm liking Litecoin. And Litecoin, though, is pretty much tracking to Bitcoin here from a general perspective. So if Bitcoin pulls in, I will certainly expect Litecoin to pull in just as much. So keep an eye on that. They're not inversely correlated right now. They're tracking. And so take your cues from Bitcoin. If you like Bitcoin, I'm thinking Litecoin outperforms. If you're bearish Bitcoin, then maybe you should be bearish everything. What else? NEO. Let's talk some NEO here. So NEO USD first. Somebody told me, man, Bitfinex had some crazy action the other day when everything went down and NEO and Omise Go hit single-digit dollar amounts for a minute. Wow. Where was my order at that point? That would have been nice to buy some $3 NEO. I doubt very few people actually bought that, but wow. So NEO USD. So this line on the chart here, that 37 mark, that was a key resistance area. I wanted it to hold. It broke above, came back, tried a few times, but pretty much just that's the wall right now. It's just sitting tight. But versus BTC, now check this out. There's a big trend that I'm watching on NEO. A couple of levels to be watching here. So we're putting in this very long-term rising trend, which is like starting to break below. Like I really wanted this to hold right here. And if you really tighten this up, there's an argument for this being the trend, and it's starting to crack. And so that's not good. You want to see NEO hold that. And then there's this horizontal support, which was these old highs before the big breakout in August, and has held that multiple times except for in the last couple of days. So versus BTC, NEO has just kind of been really weak lately and not really holding up. It's tried and rallies continue to be sold into. You can see the moving average on the daily chart is starting to head south again. And so I'm very cautious on NEO. I'm not holding a big position, but if you are, this little area here I mean, we're pretty much breaking support there very slowly. I'd be very careful here. This is a zone that we want to see NEO hold versus BTC. And if you're a big believer long-term, then this might be a great buy zone. And you'll know if it starts to break below this, then get out of the way. But this might be a good long-term buy just because we're right at the lows, right? So versus BTC. Now versus USD, it's sitting tight, right? It's just kind of going sideways, which because of this chart, I'm still bullish on NEO because of this chart. I'm thinking this is just setting up. It's building this very long base. And when you see bases that are this long, multi-month, when they bust out of these things, oh man, they go very quick. And so if this long base decides to break out, and this is a massive base, guys, this is from August to whenever this thing decides to bust out. I mean, a base of this magnitude, you're going to see NEO 70, 80 bucks at least if it breaks out. So we've seen it before. We saw it here recently with Dash. We saw it with Ethereum. We saw it with a couple of these names. So that's why I'm watching both. I'm watching the USD chart. I'm thinking NEO looks bullish from this perspective. So don't write it off just yet. Let's see what else we got here. Waves. Let's talk waves because that's doing another similar massive base on the USD chart. And I've covered this a few times in my newsletter in the last couple of months just because I thought it was going to happen over here. And it didn't right here, but it got pretty close. And then it just kind of gave you another big pullback. And look at where it's at again. It's happening right there. And again, another massive base being built on the USD side of the chart. And normally I'll look at BTC primarily for my charting. You know, you always want to see if it's outperforming Bitcoin or not. But when you see these dollar charts set up like this, you got to pay attention because if they break out, they will certainly start outperforming Bitcoin, even if there's not a setup or a chart on the Bitcoin side or a base, I mean, on the Bitcoin side. So keep an eye on these, and it's getting real close. This is a very bullish chart. The lows are getting higher. It's really starting to tighten up here in recent days. There's a lot of volume coming in, so there's a battle here naturally happening right around the old highs. And if you start to get above $7 on waves, you can see a pretty decent run on this one. It's had a lot of time to consolidate this massive move it had earlier in the year. And so definitely keep an eye on this one. Versus Bitcoin, you know, look at, this is a good example, right? There's not anything that's telling you, oh, this is really bullish versus Bitcoin. This is about to bust out. But if that dollar chart breaks out, then what you're going to see is you're going to see this thing outperforming Bitcoin. And so keep an eye on waves. It's looking pretty good. Now, if waves versus BTC, let's say the USD chart busts out here. I mean, you can see the old BTC high tested right here. And that's 36% from here. So not a bad move at all. So waves is looking good. A couple more here. We got to talk Bcash. Can't forget about Bitcoin Cash. So a couple of things here. You know, surprisingly, with the whole crazy action we saw a couple days ago, I thought maybe this one would outperform and have a little bit of inverse. And it didn't. I mean, it got smashed just with everything else. You can see this was the big sell-off in Bitcoin and all the other coins, and it did nothing. It did nothing to hedge Bitcoin. So they're no longer playing inversely like they were a couple weeks ago. And so that was surprising to see, but it is what it is. You got to adjust with the markets. Trying to hold the lows here, but USD side, I mean, there's nothing really to look at here. It's not looking bullish. Um, Still kind of basing out here. The area that I was watching though, this old high that it closed above 1314, it seems to be wanting to hold that right here. So we'll see if it continues to hold that level. This $1,000 mark is definitely the hard floor, and it touched that earlier when it had that big shakeout. But Bcash, Bitcoin Cash. Sorry, I don't want to be disrespectful. Dash. So let's go to Dash USD. Has had a monster run off of that $300 breakout. And here we are kind of pausing. Not sure what to make of this. It's starting to feel a little long in the tooth. Has had a good run. I'm not saying it's going to just collapse from here, but it's due for a pause. Let's just put it that way. Dash has been great, has been wonderful, and maybe it keeps just marching along with everything else. But it would be nice to see it just kind of base out here, set up a new floor, a new support area from which it could go to higher highs, maybe 1,000. But man, Dash, what a move. Beautiful move. What else? Ethereum Classic, another one that's been pretty strong here. Let's go to ETC on the USD side again. This was one of the early movers, and I was kind of mentioning it here along the ways. Had this big shakeout, and we see these capping from time to time, but on a long-term perspective, it's still above the 10 EMA. It's still bullish. It's breaking out to new highs. You can see the old highs on the USD side are right here, and we just here in recent days have finally got above that, and it's just continuing to look strong. See how high it keeps going now versus Bitcoin. This was actually outperforming for a long time. Here in recent days, it's kind of just sitting tight, but you can see the little resistance level there versus Bitcoin starting to be formed here. A little bit of a double top, maybe. So there's some big pullbacks off of those big green bars. So want to see that one take it out here. But for now, versus Bitcoin, that's kind of the level I'm watching as a support, that 24,240 area or so. But not bad. Not bad at all. IOTA. Another one that's been crazy strong here. IOTA. Where are you at, IOTA? Here we go. Not this one. Not this one. This one. So IOTA, there's been news around this. If you missed it, just kind of the partnerships they're doing, the Internet of Things. And on the 4-hour chart, it's pausing here very nicely. So what I like to see is this, right? When you have these huge run-ups that just monster moves up, and they naturally will give you a good correction down, but look at where it paused. The correction came right to the old support levels and has been testing it, and so far holding up. Now you're seeing it decline a little bit here, but you're also seeing these levels hold, and volume has been coming down a little bit. So that's what you want to see on a little bit of a consolidation here. So that's a good sign on the daily chart. It just needs to sit tight for a little bit longer, but I'm watching this one. If this is a good secondary entry point, in my opinion, if it starts to break out, this is a nice consolidation, and just give it a couple more days, see if this holds. And generally on something like this, I like to get in early if I'm watching this for a trade or something. So I'll get in above. I don't wait for the old highs to be taken out. I generally will get in when it starts to clear this more recent resistance like this, and then I'll get in. So it's kind of an early move. It gives you a 8 to 10% head start before it clears the old highs. So that's what I'm watching. IOTA is looking pretty good, consolidating nicely, and the resistance and the support levels are pretty clear here. I mean, it's very, very evident the levels that you need to be watching. So let me clear out this other line here, and you can see here it's just sitting in this very tight channel up and down. You got the levels that you need to be watching. So IOTA looking good. All right, let's see here. FBTC, we covered that. I'll get back to that after I cover a few more of these. ARK. Let's take a look at ARK. What's our friend ARK doing these days? So let me zoom out a little bit on the chart here. I was watching this very big pattern, and I mentioned it in my last stream. and it broke below. Come on, ARK. What happened? Look at this massive support line that had been rising, rising, rising. Now, it's not the end of the world, but it's not a good sign. Here's the good. Horizontal support, and let me go back to here. So you can see these old resistance levels back here. We're lining up with this most recent lows. So if this holds, that's good. That's perfect. That's the absolute must hold level in my opinion. You got to watch this level here. But it did break that lower trend, so not good from that perspective. So let me clear that line there. And it's kind of living below the moving average on the dailies, and it's still declining. So it's not ready yet, but this line here, this resistance line, just like many of these others that we've seen here recently, if it starts to break out above this downtrend line and finally can start closing above it, that may be the beginning of the trend shift. We tried it back here and it didn't stick. You can see where the old support line, the resistance line, was right there, and it did. It broke out and it looked like it was going to go, and then it just kind of gave it up. And so now we're readjusting the chart, see if this is the new support, and you can see, or resistance, you can see it hit it here and it hit it back here. But right now, the key level to be watching is, does it hold this 29, 28 level or so? It's got to hold that versus Bitcoin. Now, ARK USD, very much like a lot of these charts I'm seeing, which is continuing to lead me to take the bullish stance on so many of these, because just look at this chart here. I mean, clearly has put in this big base, came right back to the old highs, putting in a little bit of a handle here. And so when I see these charts, you got to pay attention, because when they start to bust out from here, that's going to translate into it breaking above this downtrend line on the BTC chart. So just like waves, just like some of the other ones we've been watching, Neo, ARK is right there. And so these are on my watch list. Absolutely. Keep an eye on these. I'm liking the setups here. There's no action yet, in my opinion, unless you're going to take like a bottom buy where you're trying to just catch the low. But got to keep an eye on these, because once they start to go, you could have a nice little run on these. Let's see what else. What do you guys want to talk about here? Omise Go. Let's look at that one. So Omise Go USD was a chart I was watching. That 850 mark was the level to be watching here. Broke above, had this crazy shakeout action the last couple of days along with everything else. But on a closing basis, has held the uptrend. You can see this uptrend that's continuing to rise here, and it's looking pretty good, looking like it wants to start retaking those highs and move above that 950, 970 range. And on the BTC chart, however, it's not looking that way, right? It's still continuing to underperform Bitcoin. The broader trend is down, but we're starting to see some bullish divergence on this, which is good. So maybe we'll start to see more upside. And by that, I mean, we got this low here, and you got a slightly lower low there. But you can see the RSI is starting to gain strength here, momentum. Same thing with the MACD signals. They're starting to move in the right direction here. So maybe, just maybe, Omise Go is going to start outperforming Bitcoin, and it needs to break above this resistance trend here. So if you can start to get above that, that'll be nice, and that'll most likely translate into, testing the old highs here on the USD side, which will be $12, $13 range or so. Omise Go. I'm still holding some Omise Go in my long-term holdings. Percent-wise, it's not huge, but holding on to some. All right, let's see here. Vertcoin. Yeah, Vertcoin. I'm liking the action of Vertcoin. So breaking out. For those of you that I shared this chart with yesterday, I hope you appreciated that. But these are the levels I was watching. I said, guys, this is setting up here, putting in a very nice base. And from that point up, we are already 14, 15% high, not bad. And, I was seeing how I was going to test this old high, because this was a wall back here. And right now we're moving above it. We got to close above it on a daily basis, but everything is pointing that it will. I mean, this one's looking pretty good. Now, obviously, if Bitcoin decides to do something crazy and take a dump, it will spill over into the alts. But right now, alts are good. If you like Bitcoin, if you're bullish Bitcoin, you got to be looking at the alts. You just got to be. And just look at this pattern, just pulling back a little bit, big volume to the upside, small volume pullbacks, And so far, it's looking good. So yes, I am liking Vertcoin here. I've been watching it the last couple of days once it started putting this little base here. And it's definitely been on my radar. And I've been trading this one here a little bit. So, but check it out. Vertcoin. Now I know there's a lot of bullishness on this one. It's about $7, $8 now, whatever that translates to on the USD side. And we'll see if we could take out these old highs that it put in here last month. But it's looking good. So if you're on it, there's no sell signals on Vertcoin. Not yet. All right. Lumens. Stellar Lumens. So, yep, it's on one of the lists and it's being pumped and all that good stuff. But that being said, it's bullish. It's strong. It was breaking out yesterday. Putting in another little secondary entry here, in my opinion. If this holds, if you see this breakout above that 900 area, could see another leg up on this here. The only thing I'm watching here, though, is that I'm cautious about is this. Look at these big wicks up here with this big volume. There's a lot of sellers, a lot of profit taking there. And I'm thinking this little bounce into here was kind of the retracement bounce. So if you look at that, you do a Fibonacci here, you know, we're kind of bouncing into that 6.8 level. So if it continues to consolidate here and put a little pause, that'll be good. But right now I'm cautious. Let's just put it that way because of that. And because I know it's being pumped. All right, let's see here. Let me go through some of these comments. See what you guys want to talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, welcome to the live stream with the Node Investor. We are covering the charts. We're talking Bitcoin. We're talking where's the market going to go next? Hit that like button. Please do Vertcoin. Oh, you just missed it. Let's see what else we got here. Is that a head and shoulders formation on the Bitcoin hourly chart? Let me go take a look at that, see what you're thinking here. Let's see what the BTC side looks like here. So Coinbase, I'll skip that one. That one's a little extreme here. So we go to the hourly. You know, okay, so I see what you're seeing. And the short answer is there's certainly, yes, there's a case to be made. So you're looking at this, right? A little potential head and shoulders on the hourly. And so, yeah, that's certainly valid. It's a very tiny one. So from like a 4-hour impact or a daily impact, it's insignificance. But if you're trading it, here's the way you look at those, right? You kind of measure the neckline and then you take the depth of the head. This is just purely technical measurements. It's just a kind of a rule of thumb, right? You know, but if it breaks down, then according to the technical measurement, right, you're looking at 10.3, 10.2, which, you know, might not actually be a bad point because that correlates with this prior resistance, which is now should be support. So yeah, that could happen. I mean, that's the level to be watching if it breaks down that 6.7 or that 10.7, 10.6 level. And that's really what I was talking about earlier, is that 10.6 level is really the key level I'm watching anyway. So that's kind of from a trading perspective, right? Now, if you're daily, if you're holding it longer term, 10.6 is nothing. You don't care about this stuff. This is just a wiggle on the chart, and you're watching more the broader trend here. 10K is really the level to be watching from that perspective. But from a trading perspective, yeah, might be cautious here. It could just as easily bust out, and once we get above 11.2, we're going to see a pretty good run, I think. Lisk. Let's take a look at Lisk. By the way, hit that like button, ladies and gentlemen. Let others know that we are here. We are live. We're checking out the charts. So let's take a look at Lisk. Where is the Lisk? So Lisk had a very nice run a couple of weeks ago, was just outperforming Bitcoin, had that huge volume reversal, not a good sign. Try to hang tight for a little bit and then got smashed here. And this was on news that they delayed some of the development work. And since then, it's just been a slow grind back, painfully slow grind back if you're holding Lisk. Now, what you want to be seeing here is, are we going to put in a higher low? You really wanted to start holding these lows here pretty soon, but right now it's just continuing to pull in. So this blue line that I've got on the chart, Let's call it basically the 100 Satoshi level, 100K Satoshi level. That was the line in the sand for me, right? So if I was holding it still, would have broke below that, that would have got me out, and that would have been good because it would have saved you. What does that translate to? 25, 30% or so further downside? Yeah, 29, 30% versus BTC. So you got to pay attention to some of those key support levels. But right now, I mean, in my opinion, nothing to do with this one. If you're still holding it, you've kind of already ridden it most of the way down at this point. So you want to see if it holds these levels and starts to turn around or put it a little bit of a low here. Power. Let's take a look at power. I think it's setting up again. I've been watching this one. Been keeping an eye on this one, see if it pulls in. Now it's tried a few times here, but it's still not ready yet. It had this little rally here, and it's trying to pump a little bit. But if you look at the 4-hour chart, kind of had that big rally, pulling in a little bit. If he starts to get a little bit of a rounding base here, you can see another leg up here, but it just had this monster run, and on the daily chart, it just needs, it just was due for a consolidation, and that was a big pullback. I mean, how far was that on the daily chart? Whoops. Let's do a move on that. I think it retraced like most of the move. I'll tell you what. Let's go to let's check a look on Binance here. Yeah, that's quite the retracement there. Let's do the fib on this guy here. If we take it from this most recent low, we pretty much retraced to the 786 level. So that's it. Bounced off of that, starting to pull in here. So maybe the low is in, starting to put a new base support. You can see there's this longer term, this broader line that's kind of been forming here. The rising lows there. And so that's what you're going to want to see. You want to see if it does continue to dip. You want to just hold this line here and continue to just kind of put a little bit of base right here. But man, it had a huge run a couple of weeks ago. Very nice. Let's take a look at Decred. Decred, where you at? Man, I got a lot of lines on that chart. What's going on here? Apparently, I look at Decred too much. So let me clear some of this stuff, give you guys a fresh look on here. And so a couple of things to watch on Decred. I was liking this little inverted head and shoulder pattern it put in. Then it had a nice little breakout. And look at where it went to. Right to the line. Pause there, pulling in. In my opinion, it's at a key support level that it really needs to be holding here versus BTC. And that would be this breakout area. And that's really more of a little zone right here that we're watching. But it's tried to hold it a few times, but right now it's just continuing to decline versus BTC here a little bit. Now, Decred USD, again, just like some of the other ones I've mentioned. I sound like a broken record here, guys, but this is why. Because when it broke out versus USD, it had a nice little run on BTC, and it still looks good from this perspective. It needed to pause because up here near the highs where it tested that downtrend on the BTC line, look at where the RSI was. It was at 85. It was well overdue for a pause. And that's what it's doing. It's pausing here. As long as it continues to hold above this $49 level or so, $50 level, it's fine. It's just kind of consolidating. It needs to after that big run. And we want to see that consolidation correlate with, some consolidation here and at least keep up with Bitcoin if Bitcoin decides to go on another run. But I'm thinking if we get another test of this downtrend line here, we'll probably bust out this second go around here. So I'm still liking Decred. Vertcoin is pumping. Yeah, I told you guys. Once it broke out above that level, it's looking good. It's been very nice. This was the level to watch. That's 60,000, 6K, 60K level, 59 or so. And that was it. So it broke out above that. Here we go. Volume's coming in. Everything is pointing north. Looking good. Now in the 4-hour, just be cautious. If you're not on this, don't FOMO. Remember the FOMO rules. You missed it. Don't chase it. Give it a little bit of a pause, a little bit of a pullback. And this one is volatile. And so you will get a pullback. I guarantee you. I mean, look at these 4-hour bars. Look at how wide they are. That one's 6%. That one's 7%. That one's 10%. I mean, look at this one, 8%. So you missed, just don't FOMO. It might pull back a little bit. It might give you a little bit of a pause, a little bit of a breakout, 6% range. That's nothing. RSI is a little high here. So if I was not in this one, I would be looking for another entry points a little bit lower. Now, I'm not saying sell it. There's definitely no sell signals here, but has a nice run going if you missed the breakout. Should I buy more Bitcoin or Litecoin? Man, that's a good question, and I don't know if you should buy any coins. Here's what I'm doing. I bought more Litecoin. I like Litecoin here versus the big three. I'm thinking, okay, if Bitcoin's bullish, I'm a bullish Litecoin here. And I'm thinking Litecoin's can outperform. It's breaking out to new highs. I was very heavy. Well, I wouldn't say very heavy, but I guess, let me put it this way. My biggest alt a couple of weeks ago was Ethereum, and that has switched to Litecoin. So Ethereum had this very nice run, and actually was buying some more along the way up here. Once it hit this 475, 500 level, then I started to switch out of it. And I still hold some Ethereum, but took some off the table, reallocated that, and moved into some Litecoin and letting that run. And so between the big three, I mean, you got to hold some Bitcoin. You got to have some Bitcoin. But I'm holding some Litecoin. That's my biggest alt right now, long-term holding wise. Litecoin. Let's see what else. Cardano. Everybody wants to talk about this one. Absolutely. Let's look at it. And then I'll look at Salt and Stratus next. So yeah. So check this one out. This one had a monster run. And we were well overdue for a pause. And that's exactly what it's doing. If you zoom in on this chart, it's kind of like, how much tighter can it get? And there is a battle happening on both sides. You look at these massive walls, buy walls, sell walls on both sides of this thing. And if you look at the near-term charts, I mean, just look at this 4-hour chart. Just look at how tight that has gotten over the last 2 days. I mean, that's not going to stay that way for long, I tell you. It's going to move one way or the other. But that is just a crazy chart right now. And I'm watching this one. This is just very interesting to see what happens next. I don't have a dog in the fight, as they say. I'm not in it either way, but I am certainly watching this one. And that 1250 area, that's kind of the key level to watch on the upside if it starts to break above that. And on the downside, here's what tends to happen with these a lot, right? Everybody's watching these and everyone's thinking, oh, this thing's about to bust out. This thing's going to break out. And everyone starts looking at it. And I'm not saying do anything one way or the other, but here's what I've seen happen so many times. Nobody knows which way it's going to go. And it's like next move, everybody blinks and they all run that direction. And so what I've seen happen here so many times is it does this. It's like sits tight, and then it goes, bam. Everybody freaks out, starts dumping, and then it goes, whoosh, and it just takes off. I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but I have seen that move play out so many times. It's almost comical. It's almost like, sell, everybody, it's breaking down, and then wham, off to the races. We'll see if that happens. The exact opposite could happen too. Could break out, could be a bull trap. Everybody piles on, and then boom. So who knows? The moral of the story is, it doesn't matter as long as you got a stop in place. Bam. All right, on to the next one. Stratus. So Stratus USD still holding up pretty good. Once it broke out above these levels I was watching, and I was talking about this downtrend on Stratus that I was liking, and sure enough, it broke above, had a big throwback right back to the trend line. Look at where it hit a couple times and starting to move higher now. Also held this little bit of a double bottom support area right around 480 on the dollar chart. And so that's all good. Everything is bullish so far about this one. This was a huge volume reversal, so maybe it pauses and bounces around this sub 650 level for a while, but it's looking pretty good. Now versus Bitcoin, it's still holding up very well, actually. I mean, it's kind of sideways. It's been shaky here the last couple of days, but this lower level, this 47, 48K Satoshi level. That's kind of the key support. And really, it's kind of becoming more of a rising support line. And if we can get back above this 56, that'll be good. And so I'm still liking Stratus. I think it looks good from both sides. It's not one of the high flyers here in the last couple of days, but that's okay. There's nothing really bearish about this one yet either. Let's see what else we got here. Let's take a look at Salt. So Salt BTC, let's look at it on Binance here. It's got more history chart-wise. Daily chart again, this is a relatively newer name. Looks like it's finally putting in a good low though. And so we go to the 4-hour chart. You can see it had this, let me pull my chart up here off the volumes. You can see it had this low. So I had this prior low back in mid-October, then put in a lower low, rallied right to resistance. This guy here, I'll blow that line up for you guys. And then pulled back in, but higher low and volume so far on the upside has been pretty good. So near term, if you're liking this one, the early entry point is right here, which is it's right at it right now, right? That's the level to be watching, this 50K, 51K Satoshi level. And it looking like it wants to bust out. It ran right to that point, pulling right back to the 10 EMA on the 4-hour chart. And if it breaks out above this, I think we'll retest these prior resistance points here and see what kind of a move that is. If it breaks out there, that's not bad. It's a 20+% move. If it can get to that point, I think it would if it broke out above here. And then above that, it's pretty much got a lot of ways to run from there. So if it breaks out to there, then you're looking at these prior highs here, and that's a good percent move up. And so best case, it moves off of this 10 EMA, we go right through this, that's 30%. And if we get to the next level, that's 75%. That'd be a pretty decent move. So keep an eye on those two levels. That's the levels I'm watching. On the downside, honestly, I'd be watching this trend, this rising trend. So that, what is that, 44 level or so? It's kind of hard to see on my screen here, but that's kind of your support level right here. So we covered Salt, we covered Stratus, we covered Vertcoin, we covered every coin. Let's take a look at some of these other ones. ARK, someone said ARK's pumping. It's looking good. It's looking good. Now versus BTC, it's got to clear that 10 EMA first. It's just been a wall. Versus USD, if it breaks out above $4 or so, that high mid 4 range, that's a good breakout in my opinion, especially if volume's there. You want to see some good volume come in. EOS, man, we haven't talked EOS yet. Let's take a look at this. Look at that. Man, it gave you a little bit of a pause, and boom, busting out here today. Very nice. And full disclosure, I have been picking up some EOS here for my long-term holdings. Again, small, probably not as much as I probably should have, but it's just giving you these nice little stair-step moves. I mean, it gave you this pause right here, had the big run-up, nice little base. This is a perfect cup and handle right here. Busted out, didn't go very far, give you a nice little pause, busted out, and looking pretty good. Not too bad. It's had a good run already, though. It's had a good run. It's already near 80. Maybe it's time to take some profits. That's it. I'm selling all of my EOS. All 2 tokens of it. I'm kidding. I'm not selling. And I have slightly more than 2 EOS. Just barely. But looking good, man. Not bad. EOS is buying its own coin. They probably are, right? Oh, let's see here. Monero. How's our good old friend Monero doing? It was on a tear, breaking into new highs, gave you that little pullback. Look at where it held support beautifully the last couple of days. Starting to edge higher here. And just continues to march along very nicely. Look at this volume, this 4-hour bar. Bam, that's your signal, right? If you've been scared and cautious and what do I do? It broke out above this level with very nice volume. It's looking good. Let's take a look at the BTC side. Confirming nice volume break to the upside, and that's good. Monero been very strong, very nice as of late. Zcash. How's Zcash doing? Since we're talking privacy coins. So this is Zcash USD on Bitfinex. Look at this crazy shakeout action. All the Bitfinex charts had this just because they were paused and they were just very shaky that one day. If you go to Zcash on Polo, yeah, it had a little bit of a long wick there, but not as much. So held support is right below these. Let me see. Well, it's got a ways to go before the old highs. Not too much, but let's see what percent that is. It's about 25, 26% still from the old highs. But just marching along. It's been pretty good. Has had a very quiet, very nice run the last couple of weeks. I mean, look at that, 76%. And you don't hear a whole lot about Zcash, but it's just been marching up very nicely. Had that big shakeout. Probably going to put in a little bit of a base here. What else should we look at? We've covered most of the biggies here. We talked Stratus. Let me say go. Did we look at Quantum? We didn't talk Quantum. Man, look at that chart. Quantum versus Bitcoin. Just sliding. Slow grind down. Take a look at that daily chart. New lows on Quantum. New lows versus Bitcoin just continues. Now, USD side, it's kind of been holding up okay, but just not doing anything. Sitting tight, sitting tight, sitting tight. And you can see why. On the Bitcoin side, as Bitcoin continues to rise, Quantum's not keeping up. All right. Let me see what else. We got a few more. Komodo. Yeah, again, another one that versus Bitcoin. You know, this one was looking pretty good a couple of weeks back. I thought it was about to bust out here. I was putting in a low and just had that big break here a couple of days ago. So this was the low I was watching on this one. And really, if you extend that back, you can see that was a key support area going pretty far back here. All right, you can see that. Tested the lows down here in September, had the nice run, came right back here mid-October, tried to rally again, rolled right back, and then look at this, sliced right through it. And right now, the level to be watching is this 10 EMA. What tends to happen is once they break these support levels, they'll rally into the moving average and they'll fail and come back down and rally and fail. So that's the level I'm watching. If it can start to get above that and recapture this 28K level, then that'll be a good sign that maybe it was a little shakeout and can instead head higher. But right now, if I had to pick between Bitcoin and Komodo, I would not be in this one. All right, 10x. We have not talked 10x. Let's take a look at this one. So pay. You can see here, I've got the line on the chart. That's really the key, not support, excuse me, the key resistance level to be watching. And this one's putting in a little bit of a channel here too. You can see the bottom end. It's held it a couple times. That's a good sign. Maybe a little bit of a triple bottom happening here on the daily chart. And let me move this off the volume so it'll be easier to see. Let me get this. So you can see here, what I'm watching is this. It's trying to test it out here. So you see 1, 2, 3. It's got to bounce here. Starts to bounce and move up. That's a good sign. Ultimately, and you know, you've seen a lot of these do that, but if it breaks out above this, then that's going to be the good move that we see on 10x and maybe has a little run. So right now it's kind of just still kind of channeling right now. And you know, versus Bitcoin, that's good if it stays sideways because at least it's keeping up with Bitcoin. You don't want it to be doing this where it's just sliding down versus Bitcoin, but it's in a little range here. So it's not really doing much from an up or down perspective. So from this point up, and you know, the nice thing is like if you take an early position on these, your downside is very clear, right? I mean, this is your line. So you give it single digit percents, in my opinion. But on the upside, you know, you even a bounce up to the resistance is 30%. So from a risk reward perspective, it's not too bad if you're trading these. But so is the opportunity cost, right? Is there something else that you'd rather be in, like a Vertcoin or a, what else coin? Let's talk Civic. Civic's another one I've been watching here and just continues to break down. underperform. Bitcoin here has been sliding down. Let me clear some of these lines. And you can see the long-term chart here is just hitting new lows versus Bitcoin. And so the broader downtrend is clearly not broken. And until that happens, it certainly would not be. If it were me, I'm not adding any Civic here at these lows. Now, Civic is definitely oversold. And just because it's oversold doesn't mean it's in a rally, but you would think it's close to these lows. I mean, this RSI hit 25 not too long ago, and it's sitting here. What you want to see start happening, though, is some bullish divergence. So you want to see it hit like a low and then rally and maybe hit a new low, but the RSI starts to climb and the MACD signal starts to climb. And that might be your early signal that maybe it's done going down. But for now, there's really nothing to indicate that it wants to start outperforming Bitcoin. Until you see these trend lines broken, I wait on those. That's just me. Cardano. We already covered that one, but let's look at that one because the battle is underway. Bulls and bears are fighting. Which will move next? Which one will win? So here's the thing with this. It had this monster move. So if you look at the very short-term chart, you're thinking, can't do this much longer, right? It's got to do something. But if you look at the daily chart, look at the 10 EMA is still way down here. And where is that? 20, well, it's not way down there, but still 20% lower. That's pretty significant. And so it could just sit tight for a couple more days before it really does anything substantial and let this moving average catch up. But it's nice to see it finally pausing. It's been pretty crazy for a while. But I'm watching this. This is the line I'm watching. If we can start to get above that 1250 level and close, then it might be a decent little breakout there. But I wonder how high could it really go, just because it's still, the moving average is still down here. So even it starts to rally, I mean, it's not like it's coming from position that it was back here, right? Back here, the RSI was very low. You know, the moving averages were really tight. And so it had plenty of room to run before it got technically overbought. That's not the case right now. So if it really started to break out, I think you would be limited. I don't think you'd see another 200% move like you saw before. So it's actually best if it sits tight for a little bit. Let's see here. You guys always want to talk Walton coin. Let's see here. Is it finally moving? It's finally moving. Look at that 4-hour bar. Nice move off the lows there. Very good. RSI 75. That's pretty good. How long has this? Let me see here. Off the low. It's already up 75%. Good move on the Walton. Finally put in a low, finally broke that downtrend. So it's looking good on the daily chart. Looking like it probably still has more upside to go on this daily charts. Just getting going here. Right at a key resistance point here. So might be a good level for it to pause at. But not bad. Not a bad move. Let's see if we can give you a little pullback, a little bit of a handle here before it busts out. Right. You sold all your Walton at $5. It's okay. I don't have any Walton, so I'm right there with you. Pivx. Is Pivx breaking out? He was having a pretty decent move the other day. It's trying. It's trying, and it's tried a few times here. Hey, during the last live stream, it broke out. It seems like every time I'm on the stream, Pivx breaks out. What is happening? Next time, I'm going to just buy some Pivx before I go live. It's like, what is going on here? 20%. I'm not kidding. Last time I was live, it did this. It went up 60% during the last live stream and then just gave it all up. And here I am. Somebody's playing with Pivx. It's definitely a low volume name. What does Pivx trade these days? It's come a long ways. Not too bad. 24-hour volume of $2.6 million. $270 million market cap, though. It has come a long ways. Speaking of market cap, we're basically around $330 billion market cap, with the Bitcoin dominance continuing to hang around that 56, 55% level. So Bitcoin holding its own, man. Everyone wants their Bitcoin. Pivx is pumping. Pivx is on a roll. As soon as I go off the live stream, though, it's just going to collapse. Like, that's it. That's what it does. Pivx. I'm kidding. All right, let's see here. Fun. Yeah, let's take a look at that one. I was watching Fun the other day. Fun BTC. Man, that's a tight little range. Now, this is a very low volume name, so just so you know, it's low volume. And you can see by the bars, it's very choppy. But if you zoom out a little bit, look at the 4-hour chart, you can see these long wicks. Yeah, I was watching it up here. I thought it was maybe going to break out, give it all back up. And so far, it's starting to pull back in. Came right back to that key support level. Aren't they supposed to go live on one of their platforms here soon? Maybe that was the news that gave it a little bit of a run, but that's the level I'm watching. There's really nothing to do here. If it starts to bounce and maybe recover this 250 level or so, maybe start looking at it again, but right now I'm not doing anything with this one. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, hit that like button. So let's talk Bitcoin. So we've had quite a few people join since we started this. Let's go back to Bitcoin. Let me share my thoughts on what I'm liking, what I'm not liking, what we're seeing, and I'll do a rehash. So if you were with me and you heard this already, hang tight. I'll make it quick. So Bitcoin, we had this nice double bottom here on the 4-hour chart. You saw my last video. I was talking about we hit this level, we hit this level. The second low correlated with the 10 EMA on the daily chart, which also correlated with the first Fibonacci retracement level. And so I was optimistic that that was the low near term. Bought the dip. And sure enough, it worked out. It's pulled in here, was trying to break this level, finally did here. Once we broke above that, it was pretty quick from there to the 11K level, and now we're pausing. My concern initially was once we hit that 11.2 level, I was worried that, okay, if it starts to break down here, we're going to see a double top. It did not want to see that. And I was saying best case, we sit tight, we hang around here for a little bit, put a little bit of a handle in, and then break out to new highs. And so what I want to see happen next is maybe a couple more of these 4-hour bars and then break out above 11.2. 11.2 is really the real, I want to say the significant resistance here. Yeah, we went as high as 11.4, almost 11.5. Overnight, and that was very quick, very brief. But the wall that it was really hitting was right there, and you can see we came right to it a couple times here and right here, and so that's really what you want to watch. If it can sit tight here for a little bit and go sideways, build some support right beneath that wall, and maybe kind of stay in this 10.5 to 11.2 range, then that'd be nice, especially on the daily chart. It'll start to really build some support here. Let the moving averages catch up, and then that may lead to new highs. If we break out above 11.2, I don't expect those overnight resistance points around 11.4 to be very significant, so I think we'll overtake that pretty quickly. So that's really the level I'm watching. So that's my super fast analysis on Bitcoin. Let's keep going. Litecoin. So Litecoin came right to the old highs here. $100 was tested again. You can see that was our point. Starting to pull in a little bit. See if it holds. 95 level is kind of really the level that I'm watching here from a hold 96, 95 level. So it could pull back a little bit. And if you look at the 4-hour chart, I mean, you can see the moving average is catching up. It needs to pause, but look at the volume is declining on this little pause, which is good. There's not a lot of selling pressure showing up, and it's all been buying right here. Just crazy buy volume. So it's being accumulated, and I think we'll be back over 100 here if we can sit tight for a little bit. I am liking Litecoin, and I'm actually preferring Litecoin near term over Ethereum. So what else? I had a question for you guys, and I was thinking about this before the live stream. So when I talk charts, I do two things, right? I certainly do some trading, and I talk near term, and I'll do some quick trading and some 1-hour charts and support and resistance. And there's certainly the long-term charts, the buy and the holds, the long-term portfolio that I move a lot slower, and it's diversified and all that fun stuff, but it's very heavy, the big three. I mean, that's the primary: Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum. And yeah, I've got a few others, some Dash and some Decred, cycle things in and out of it from time to time. But my question to you guys is, what camp are you in? Do you buy and hold, or are you trading Bitcoin and altcoins, swing trading, day trading? I'm just curious to know what side of things you guys prefer to be on here. And I know a lot of you guys are just coming into the space, and so maybe you're not doing either, and you're just kind of watching and thinking what to buy next or what to get started with. So if that's you, let me know. Mostly hold, hodler, only swing trades. You traders, you hodlers, casual trader, some buy and hold, some swing trading, some day trading. Am I still streaming? I'm still streaming. Let me see here. Buy and hold. Letting these comments come in. I'll show you guys. You sold 100 Bitcoin for €1,000 in 2001. I'd be crying too. Swing trading. Hold and flip. You have long terms. Keep stack. All of the above. You're hodling ARC. Daily on swing. All right. 100% alts. Woo. Can you hear me drinking champagne? No, I'm not drinking champagne. This is a bottle of San Pellegrino sparkling natural mineral water. It's quite delicious. What else? Bitcoin hodl, alts hodl. Sell my stake in Apple. Ooh, I'm going to talk about Apple here. Swing trade, day trade. Cool. Yeah, so, okay, good. I figured that was generally the audience, and just checking with you guys. So, yeah, I do both, as you know, and my percent trade account versus my hodl account, it varies from time to time depending on how bullish I am on the market versus how cautious I am and so forth. But it's generally like a 60-40 splits, sometimes less when things are a little too crazy, like we saw in October. Nothing was working. It was really hard to trade. Then it was a smaller percent. But like we saw in May and April, it was a very heavy trade. I was taking advantage of all the pumps. So it just depends. But it's exhausting and it's a lot of work. I'll tell you guys. I look at charts a lot. All right, cool. So thank you for those responses there. And I was curious to see what the split was. Okay, so let me see here. Before we get going, some housekeeping stuff. Let me share this here with you guys. So some of you guys are asking about the private group and all that fun stuff, and I don't usually talk about it a whole lot just because I try to keep it to a limited size, and it's working that way because I can be a little more interactive with you guys and a little bit more personalized. But some of you guys know, some of you guys don't know, and if you don't know, that means you're not a subscriber. I do maintain a list, and anybody who's bought any of my courses, whether it's the Cryptocurrency 101 or the Technical Analysis course, and most of you guys have bought this one because most of you guys already know how to buy and exchange cryptos. But if you've bought this, then you're already getting my mailings. If you subscribe to my newsletter, today I sent out a note, but there is a private group that I maintain, and it's still open. I've got a few slots left, and the December group will kick off on Monday. So I'm basically going to close out the private group right after this call, basically. So there's a few spots left, and if they're not closed out by the end of my evening, my night, I will close it. And so you can go to nodeinvestor.com/training/insiders. 32 spots left. We kick off on Monday, and anybody who's been with me the last couple months, the current Slack members always get first priority, and I let them renew first, and then I open it up to anybody else if and when there are open seats available. And what you get with that basically is I'll post my trades, my swing trades, my day trades, and it's also a lot of mentoring. It's a lot of like sharing my methodology, my money management, my stop losses, my thoughts on the markets, keep you guys updated real time on BTC and everything I'm watching. And I've gotten some pretty good feedback, and I appreciate those of you on this call that are with me in that group right now. We had a fun time last month. I got to tell you guys, that was good. But like I said, I keep it small, and I don't really advertise it a whole lot because that's not my intention. Is to have 1,000 people following my Telegram signals channel or anything. I just want to keep it small. You guys share charts with me. I give you my perspective, my analysis. I share trade ideas and setups I'm watching, and there we go. And one that I shared yesterday was Vertcoin, for example. All right. Let me and guys, I'm serious. It's going to sell, and I'm not going to open up new spots, but I am going to share that link here real quick and post it on the channel. And it's it, and it's done. I'm going to throw it out on the comments, okay? Or anybody that's interested. And let me see here. There it goes. Okay, so Litecoin price prediction. If it breaks out above that 100, which I think it will, I'm looking for $120, $150 Litecoin. How quickly we get there, who knows? But I'm liking it. I'm thinking we're going to have, this is just a huge base that it's been putting in here, and it's trying to bust out, and if it starts to get going, I'm thinking we could see, another decent percents. And from here on up, if we go to 120, it's only 20%. If we go to 150, that's 48, 50%. That's a very nice move still, considering the real breakout, right, where I was really picking more of it up was down here at this cup and handle level. And if you missed it, or if you weren't watching my videos here, I was talking about this cup, this handle, the 64, 65 area was the breakout point. And we've had a very nice move since then, but it's not like it's gone crazy straight up, right? It's just been marching along nicely, but we're already at 50%. And from here, if we break out above that $100 level, that's what I'm looking at, right? I'm thinking we could see a double. That'll put us at 120, 130, maybe 150 on the moon shoot up. Then it's going to need to pause after that. But the thing with Litecoin, you got a lot of people coming in. And here's my fundamental rationale on this one. You've got the masses, crazy people coming in. It's not working because you know what? Google Chats doesn't let you do the links. Go to my website, go to training, and type in insiders. investor.com/training/insiders. And read this before you do anything, just so you know where I'm coming from. Okay. Does it include my courses as well? It does not. And so the reason it doesn't is because it's something I've been only offering to my course buyers. And the reason for that is because I have had people join that did not buy my courses and said, this is way above my level. Can I get out of the group? Right. It was that. And so it's intentional, right? Because I started talking Fibonacci and support and resistance and bases and all that. And the minimum is you've at least been somewhat familiar with that, right? So if you're not familiar with moving averages and some of those, or if you've never traded at all before and you don't know how to do order execution in your account, it might be too much for you. Now, the group is very open and very friendly, and I have just been impressed with the resource sharing, and people ask questions about how to put orders in, and everybody's just so active. So that's awesome. But that's why I typically have only limited to people who've taken the course already. Okay, so let's see here. I was saying something about Litecoin. So Litecoin. So everyone's buying Bitcoin. People are rushing into Bitcoin. They're opening up their Coinbase accounts. They're wanting to buy some Bitcoin. And I can't tell you, I've had several people just in the last 2 weeks buy Bitcoin through Coinbase, and they're getting excited. They want to be part of the action. And they're just now starting to hear about Ethereum. And they're also seeing, hey, what's this Litecoin? Hell, Bitcoin's $11,000. Ethereum's almost 500. Maybe I should just buy some Litecoin. And from a market cap perspective, Litecoin's $5 billion. Ethereum's $44 billion. Bitcoin's $185 billion. Holy moly. And yeah, so there's just going to be a lot of, I think, some interest. Just psychology-wise, it's just mentally feels nicer if I could buy a whole Litecoin if I can't afford a whole Bitcoin. You know what I mean? And that you see that in stocks. It's very common for like a $10 stock for people to buy those up because they feel like, hey, I could buy 20 shares of this thing versus how many shares of Apple can I buy, right? And so there's just that mentality. The big money, the institutional, they're going to go for the big caps. They want to buy the Ethereums and the Bitcoins. But I'm thinking a lot of people is coming in and they're going to be wanting some Litecoin. And from a market cap perspective, it's just easier for Litecoin to double from here than it is for Bitcoin to double from here. I mean, just the law of large numbers. And Bitcoin could double from here, but it would be way easier for Litecoin to double from here. Litecoin going from 100 to 200 is $10 billion. And that's huge, but it's doable. Bitcoin going from 11,000 to 22,000, that's massive. So just keep that in mind. That's some of my rationale there. That's more long-term thinking. All right. ARK is breaking out. It's looking good. Now versus BTC, it's on a move. Maybe. Watch that line. Zcash. Yeah, we'll do Zcash again. We did that one earlier. Let's see here. Zcash. I think it's due for a pause. It's been putting a little bit of a base here on the daily chart. It's had a very nice run. A very quiet 70% move off the lows here. So you can see it went as high as 70, a little over 70%. Had that big shakeout, big volume break, and now it's just kind of pausing. And I like Zcash. I've actually been holding some Zcash for a while. We'll see if it could take the old highs out. The old highs are still right around that $400 mark. And it's a good ways out from that still on a percent-wise. From here on up, it's still a good 23%. But this was a big shakeout. It recovered quickly. So as long as this low 300 range holds or even 300 max, I think it's good. Do I sell after a big pump if the general trend is strong? For my trading accounts, I do. Just because I oftentimes like to sell into strength. And it depends on a couple of things, right? So like, let's take a look at what's a good one that pumped here recently. I mean, even Ethereum, even for the long-term holdings, they started to move some of that out. USD side, right? So it was marching. And what happens is you see the big volume right at the end of a big move, and that typically signifies some buyer exhaustion, and it's going to at best sit tight, and that's what it did. And so when I'll try to sell into some of those strengths, and it tends to work out. And what happens is at that point, look at RSI is at 83. From the 10 EMA at the top of that move, you're already 19, 20% above the moving average. And so everything is pointing to this thing is extended. It's maybe overbought. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to collapse, but best case, it needs to sit tight for a while. Long-term holds, that's not a sell. It's just it's going to pause and you just know it. But if you're trading it, I'll sell into some of that strength. I'll take some profits off the table, or I'll do both. Maybe I'll sell part my position and then I'll move up my stop up really tight and just be sold out, if you will, if it pulls in a little bit. And then I'll just look to redeploy some of that capital to something that's going to break out or look like it's strong again. So I tend to do that. And that was a good move, right? So in this case, I sold out into BTC. And if you look at the FBTC chart, that move correlated with this high. And from that point on, Bitcoin outperformed Ethereum by a magnitude of 27%. And so it is good to take some profits from time to time, especially if you're a trader mentality, right? If you're swing trading and doing some of that, you've got to consider that, right? Because you know that everything needs a break eventually. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to pull back, but it needs to stop. It needs to pause. It needs to regroup. It needs to let the technicals kind of reset a little bit. And so in the meantime, I go to find something else that's working. And so I'll sell into strength. Now it depends on the pump, right? If it's a big pump off the lows, like let's say something has a huge pump, I don't necessarily sell into that because I'm thinking look for a secondary entry and I'll add some more and then I'll ride the move up because that tends to signify a big trend change. But at the top of a move, that's when you want to look for some profit taking there. Let's see what else. A lot of good comments coming in. I'm overlooking the network effect of Bitcoin. I didn't say Bitcoin was not a good buy, but from a percent perspective, I think some of these alts might be good. Let's see here. Ethereum. So we talked Ethereum. Now it's setting up nice here. I think it's going to go over 500. It's just sitting tight, and it needed to. It was due for a pause, and it's sitting real tight here. It's actually looking nice. Nice little setup here. Held pretty good at that shakeout. Trying to rise here. As long as it holds this moving average, and really the level, that 450 level, it really needs to hold that. But on the daily chart, this is good. You can see that 10 EMA now is catching up. It's 445, so that makes sense, that 450 level. And it's looking good. If we can get above that 480 again, 500 Ethereum, and it did overnight, but it was a very, very quick shakeout move. That's when Bitcoin hit 11.5 or whatever it was, 11.4 and change. Okay, so what else? I think I covered them all. If you're just joining, we covered Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, Litecoin, Zcoins, every coins, Walton coins, Bitcoin 10.9. Let's see what Bitcoin Cash is doing. And so, as I mentioned earlier, I was really surprised that Bitcoin Cash did not do the inverse that it's been doing here the last couple of weeks with Bitcoin. So you can see Bitcoin Cash versus BTC. Let me find it. It's just been underperforming. And when Bitcoin had the big pullback, this moved along with all the other alts and pulled back. And so it's not showing that it wants to outperform Bitcoin just yet. So Bitcoin Cash. All right. You're up 2% on VTC. No one's talking about Bitcoin? All right. Substratum. We'll cover a couple more of those. And I think we'll wrap it up. It's been good, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see here. Remember, I started the live stream by saying this is not going to be a 5-hour live stream. So Substratum had that big run. Pulling in. Let's see how this looks on a fib retracement level. From the lows here on this move to the peak of that wick. Look at that. It's trying to hold the 618 level, right? Bouncing around this little range. You want to see this low take. Ideally, that makes sense if it holds there, but it's got to get back above that moving average, in my opinion, on the daily chart, that 10 EMA. And on the 4-hour chart, same thing. It's got to get back above that 10 EMA. Right now, it's just kind of lower lows so far, lower highs until that trend changes. Just be cautious with this one and really just keep an eye on this, this trend line here. Let me find it. Let me find my tool. All right, that's kind of the general trend right there. If it starts to break above that or goes sideways a little bit and start to bust out, that's what I'd be looking for on this one. Do I have Bcash? I do have a little bit of Bcash. It's not a substantial position. I don't think it's enough to like hedge Bitcoin if that was working still, but I picked up a little bit. Do I think this is a good level to buy for Bitcoin? Let me see. Well, it's kind of hard to say. You know my thoughts right now on Bitcoin. I like for it to pause right now. The daily chart has had a good run. The RSI is a little bit high. It's already at 83 on the daily chart. So that's a bit extended, right? Especially if you're going to be doing more of a buying this long-term hold type of thing. You might it's all about risk reward perspective. And so the risk is higher here just because we've already had a big run. A pullback would be normal. And so if you're not already in it, it's kind of cautionary buy here, in my opinion. Could it go higher? Absolutely. And I think it might intermediate term because you're going to see this 11.2 level be taken out. And once that happens, um, yeah, we could have another little pop that takes you to maybe 12K, right? But then after that, if it runs to 12K in the next couple of days, I mean, that's going to make for a very extended chart. I will be very cautious, right? Will it go parabolic? Will it do the J curve parabolic blow off? I doubt it. I hope not, right? Because I'd rather it pause and reset and keep going longer term. But just be careful there. I think it's a little bit long on the tooth here on this recent run. We did have a 30% shakeout, but that was a short-lived move that didn't even breach the moving average on the daily chart. So it wasn't really a shakeout from like we saw back here, or we saw even right back here, right, where this reset the RSI levels. See how this kind of came down and everything was paused and gave you some more room to run. Up here, this was a very brief shakeout that barely put a dent into this thing, and now we're higher. So I'd just be cautious if you're not in it. If you're in it now, heck, keep riding it, right? But if you're not in it, would I be committing huge amounts of capital to this one? I don't know if I would. Honestly, if it were me, I'd be probably looking at one of the others if I wanted to deploy something. All right. One more. GRS. That was one that ran for a while. Looking like it wants to go for round 2 here. So that's the 4-hour chart, more near term, trying to finally bust out above this recent resistance. It's testing it. It's looking pretty good. Hit 80 on the RSI, pausing. That's exactly what you wanted to see. You want to see the big run, volume coming in, pause, let the RSI come back a little bit. And that'll give it enough technical strength to bust through above this line and give you a good run on the daily chart. That's a nice setup right there. That's a good base, nice little pause, good volume starting to come in, and certainly not overbought or anywhere near that on the daily chart, so it could have a good run. Now, I don't know a whole lot about the project fundamental-wise, so I can't tell you anything about it. I haven't researched this one bit. All right. Bitcoin Gold, okay, I'll do one more. I haven't done Bitcoin Gold yet, and I forgot about Bitcoin Gold. Let's see where that one's at. I was watching this as maybe a pullback up here. It's been way too deep now to be a cup and handle type of pullback. It's kind of giving you a little bit of a lower declining trend here on the 4-hour chart. It's still just marching lower versus the USD. And that means it's really underperforming Bitcoin. So, man, here we are back to $200 range. I'm not doing anything with this one at the moment. I'd probably be waiting until I saw this one turn around. It's just so young of a project. It's just hard to say. Is anybody going to show any interest in it? Are we going to start trading it? And it's just really hard to say. Maybe this trend, watch this. If it pulls back and hits that 250 mark or so, that might be it. Maybe it starts to bounce off of there. All right. Okay. Well, that's going to do it for this live stream. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining. Thank you for being here. Appreciate having you all as always. And keep you guys posted. Take care, everyone. Have a good night.